So we are going to start going through the 3 causes of variation, with the first one being the easier one, mutation. But I've got in this blue box here, up on the right, there are 3 processes that create variation. And remember, when I'm talking about creating variation, these are all during sexual reproduction, because in asexual reproduction there isn't much variation. So from now forwards I'm always talking about sexual reproduction. So the 3 processes: mutation, meiosis, including independent assortment and crossing over, that's probably the hardest one, and then the last one, random fertilization. So like I've got here, these processes either introduce new alleles, that's mutation, which we'll look at now, or shuffle the combination of alleles from parents into new combinations. That's the other 2, meiosis and random fertilization. Okie dokie, so yes, we're going to start with mutation today. So remembering this point here that offspring receive a complete set of genes, we've got all of the genes that we need, but a different assortment of alleles. So examples for the eye color gene, you could have the brown eye color, the blue eye color, green, hazel, whatever. You've got different alleles from your parents for that gene. Your friend has the same gene for eye color, but possibly different alleles. So the first thing that can actually make new alleles altogether, so we're not talking about shuffling them up yet, we're talking about actually making a whole new allele, is mutations. So definition, because you must know definitions at the bare minimum, please just learn the definitions. A mutation is a change in the base sequence of DNA. Sorry, that was not circled very well. And they are caused by mutagens, which are, well, we'll have a look at that later, but like radiation, chemicals, infectious agents, that sort of stuff. 3 options: mutations can be harmful, so they can make your survivability lowered, or they could be neutral, like they don't do anything, or they could be beneficial, so they actually help you to survive. Most mutations end up causing death, or like of the fetus, or eventually in life, because the gene often creates a completely non-functional protein. So we've already had a look. If this is like the base sequence here for like eye color, if you kind of screw this up too much, then the actual gene for that protein just can't fold properly. It's not just going to cause a different eye color, it's just broken altogether. So yeah, this can often cause like death if it's really important protein, like in a sort of like pathway in your body, or if it's just a like hair protein, or I don't know, something like that. It can cause like disease, inheritable diseases. Very occasionally mutations produce a brand new protein that gives an organism an advantage over others in being adapted to their environment. So you might end up with a mutation, but actually you live and survive better than the other people in your population or in the species. So we've got a beneficial allele here. Some examples of neutral mutations, like tongue rolling. You might have the gene for tongue rolling or not. It doesn't really make you survive any better or not. It's just there. Didn't kill you, didn't make you survive better. Okay, so let's have a look. Yeah, not too important. You'll look at this more next year. Can be a single base change. So you can see here in this example, the T changed for a C. It's just a 1 base changed over. Or it could be a whole chromosome, like in Down syndrome. The whole of chromosome 21 is replicated, so it's 3 of chromosome 21. Or you could have like a chunk of chromosome missing. That's also a mutation. Typically that would be harmful though. These single base change ones are more likely to lead to a beneficial mutation. So there's two places they can occur because we've got two types of cells, in body cells or in sex cells. So remember, those are the two types of cells at a big picture sort of level. So if it's in body cells, we call that a somatic mutation. So soma means body. I think it's in Latin or something like that. But yeah, so somatic is the biological word we're going to use for body cells. So somatic mutations. For examples like cancers, could be a mutation like in your liver if you've got liver cancer, or on your skin if it's skin cancer. So like a mistake in the DNA that sort of leads to uncontrolled cell growth, and that's why you get like lumps for cancer. Or it can occur in our other cell type, in our gametes, in our sex cells, and so we call that a gametic mutation, so an egg or sperm. And what this means is that can be passed on because it's in your gametes. So we've changed, because remember we said inheritable, it must be in the DNA. We're further specifying that and say it must be in the DNA, but specifically a gametic mutation, and that it will be passed down to all of the offspring. Whereas if it's a mutation in your skin, like skin cancer, that won't be passed on because it is changing your DNA, but it is not going into your gametes to be passed on to your offspring. So really importantly, I've got here, only mutations that occur in the gametes can actually be inherited. If it occurs in body cells or somatic cells, it will not be inherited. If the new allele is beneficial and increases an organism's chance at survival, it will become more frequent in the population because that organism will survive longer, reproduce more, and pass on that beneficial allele. So some examples of mutagens, this is my face covering this, but X-rays, UV radiation, cigarette smoke, nitrates, which are in a lot of processed meat like hot dogs and stuff, barbecuing, and when you barbecue meat you can sometimes make mutagenic chemicals, benzoyl peroxide, which is often in like acne products, you might read the back of your skincare, HPV, which you may or may not have the vaccine for. This is a sexually transmitted virus, but if you get it, not only do you get the STD, but you also can end up later down the track with cancers like cervical cancer, for example, from the HPV, from this virus. Also, this bacteria here, which can be from like food poisoning, not all food poisoning is the same bacteria, the specific one, can also cause mutations as well. In terms of just like as an interest, you might have seen, if you've been watching all of those shows on Netflix, particularly in lockdown, about like being vegan and all of that, they often say, okay, well, like meats are a class 1 carcinogen, which means that it causes cancer. That's what carcinogens are, sort of like mutagens. When they say that, it sounds extra scary because it's class 1, which is in the same boat as like smoking and all of that. It's actually not the percentage chance that it would cause a mutation or cause cancer. It is how much evidence there is to support the fact that it could cause cancer. So there is a lot of research about meat and can it cause cancer. Even if I don't know what the probability is, but even if the probability that it causes cancer or the like frequency of it is like 1%, if there's a lot of evidence to support that it is 1%, then it would be classified as class 1, even though 99% of people, or whatever it is, don't get cancer. So yeah, I mean, everything in moderation, but if you're reading any of this online about like carcinogens, yeah, you might want to research a little bit deeper before you get freaked out. Okay, a past question that my face is completely covering. Some leopards, this is following on from last lesson. Some leopards or jaguars have a mutation causing them to have a black coat. These are known as black panthers. How can this mutation cause the coat colour to be determined? I'm guessing that says. In your answer, you should use the terms DNA, gene, allele, and mutation. Okay, so obviously starting with defining them. DNA carries genetic information as a base code. Important. Gene is a section of DNA that codes for one trait. For example, fur colour. Have to refer to the example. Mutation is changing the DNA base sequence, which affects the way the gene is expressed. In this case, a mutation in the coloration gene produced the new allele, which is an alternative form of a gene. In this case, that new allele is black fur. This leads to a new phenotype, which is the physical expression of the gene. So we're linking in our knowledge of the cause of this variation, the differences between these, but we're also linking in just our basic knowledge of what is DNA, gene, allele, phenotype, and how are they connected in terms of the base sequence. So if we change the base sequence, i.e. a mutation, then you will change the allele, which will change the genotype, which eventually changes the phenotype. So make sure you're getting that down. We've done lots of that in class. Make sure you're getting that flow of events. It's the base sequence that's really important here. If you change it, you will change the physical expression of that allele.